to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, aka Start Park Car here, and as you can clearly tell right off the bat, we are not in my normal office, my dad's office. I just use it, but we're in my room. Yes, this is my room. This is my toy room for the people who don't know, and we're doing the ARCA Racing Podcast from my room this week because my dad's using his office. So here we are, folks. But welcome everyone to tonight's show. I do want to start off saying I do apologize for not doing a preview show last week. Just didn't have time. Some personal stuff got in the way, so didn't have time to do a preview show. But we'll still talk about the preview. We'll talk about the entry list, the normal stuff we talk about on preview shows. Anyway, and then we'll get into the race. So before we get into everything, you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media at Start and Park Car on Twitter. We are close to 6,500 followers. I think we're less than 50 away. So let's get to 6,500 followers there. We are just under 120 subscribers from 2,500 subscribers. So again, if you like what you see here, hit that like button and hit the subscriber button, please. Super chats are open if you'd like to support the show financially. You don't have to, but they're open if you want to. And go check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR meter related content. So Phoenix Racing. Personally, not one of my favorite tracks on the circuit. It's not necessarily the favorite of anybody on the circuit, as it really seems like. It is not one of the most popular racetracks amongst the fan base and a lot of the drivers. I mean, they probably don't hate it, but I bet it's not one of their favorite tracks. But nonetheless, it brings in a decent crowd, and it's in a cool area. Phoenix, Arizona is a cool area, so I can understand why we go there. Obviously. And it's been a staple on the ARCA Menard Series West schedule for many, 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 many years. So, and of course, starting in 2020, the main series division added the schedule to their primary event in a combo race. And this is now the fifth year of that deal. And thankfully, we had a decent car count. Car counts were down a little bit from this race last year. I mean, it was just an unbelievable start to the 2024 season, when we had 50 cars at Daytona and 43 cars at Phoenix last year. It was the first time in, almost probably over a decade that we had DNQs in two straight ARCA races. And it was the main series teams that missed out last year. It was the 48, the 06, and the 31 that ended up missing the race last year. So we didn't have that this year. Instead of 43 cars, you had the reverse of that this year. We had 34 cars, which again is still a solid field size. I would say for a track like Phoenix, 1 mile big, anything over 30 I would consider good. I think we can kind of all agree that anything over 30 cars I would say is considered a solid field size for a track like Phoenix. And now we didn't go over the entry list, so I want to go over the entry list real quick right here for all 34 drivers in the field. Again, I'm going to go right down the list, so preface, this will take a second. We have the number one, Robbie Keanly. Now note, Jan Qualkenbush, the Jan's Towing Team, they do run two cars in the ARCA Menard Series West Division. However, for this weekend, the main series division cars do take number one. I can't really think of the word. I can't really think of the word, sadly. But they take preference. Preference. That's the word. They take preference over the West Series team. So, Fast Track Racing was allowed to use the number 9 before the Jan's Towing Team. I believe that is how the rule works. So, the number 9 went to Tony Cosentino this weekend. And so Robbie Keanly's team had to run the number 1. I believe that was the case. If I'm a betting man, that is more than likely what happened. And so Robbie had to run as number 1. Adrian Farrer in the number 3, I believe he was running full-time for the Kelly Souza operation. Eric Johnson Jr. in the 5, LeVar Scott in the 6. As we have just previously mentioned, Tony Cosentino in the 9. Tony Cosentino in the 9 car. Getting the preferential number. Brad Perez in the 10. Great to see Brad Perez back in the ARCA Menard Series. Cody Dennison in the 11. Tim Monroe in the 12. Great to see Tim back. This was actually his own car. This was actually Tim Monroe's own car this weekend, not a fast track car. Tanner Reif, of course, in the 13, replacing his brother Tyler, as Tyler is now driving for the 23 Sigma team. Trayton Lapsevich, great to see Trayton in the ARCA series again, driving the number 15 for Venturini. Brent Cruz in the 18. Jake Bowman, he is driving the remainder of the season alongside Christian Eckes in the 19. Lawless Allen in the 20. Tyler Reif in the 23. Patrick Starpoli, or as shall we call him, Dr. Patrick Starpoli. Yes, he is a doctor now. Good to see Patrick Starpoli back in the series. For the ones who do not remember and who have been watching who were watching the Can-N series pretty much a decade ago, he drove the Peak 99 car. Even won a race. So he's been away for a long time. It was cool to see him back. Brendan Queen in the 28, Tim Viennes in the 31, Thad Moffat in the 46, Brad Smith in the 48, Trevor Huddleston in the 50, Blake Lothian in the 51, Isabella Robusto in the 55, Ryan Vargas in the 67, Kyle Keller in the 71, Jonathan Rayom in the 72, Anna Jankowiak in the 73, Cole Raz in the 76, 77 of Corey Day, 86 of Alex Malike, 97 of Jason Kitzmiller, 99 of Michael Maples, 03 of Alex Clubb, 05 of Dave Smith, and the 06 of Brayton Laster. So that was your 34 cars for this weekend, for this past weekend's race, I should say, at Phoenix. Again, still a solid field size. Obviously a step down. Obviously a step down from, where we were, last year in terms of having 43 cars, but still nothing really to complain about. I don't think there's anything necessarily to complain about in terms of car counts. Still a solid field size nonetheless. There were a couple of starting parks in the field, actually more than I thought. I didn't think the 86 was running the whole race. Brad Smith, obviously, he never runs the full race at Phoenix. Didn't expect the 67 to be a starting park, but it ended up being one. And the 10 of Brad Perez. Those appeared to be this, just kind of based off how they were acting on track. Those were the starting parks for this race. Actually, one car, Alex Malike, didn't even start the race. They had Sons of Ecstasy on TV on the car, and apparently due to an issue with ARCA not allowing that car to be shown on TV, they were not allowed to make a lap. So, and I should mention, practice and qualifying was rained out. They, and of course, in Phoenix of all places, we still got a crap load of rain. So, you had practice wiped out, qualifying rained out, which for an ARCA race can sometimes be pretty scary when you consider some of the people in the field really could use some practice laps, and some of the teams could really use some practice laps to make sure their cars are right. So they kind of started, on the inside line, they started the main series cars, and on the outside lane, they started the West Series cars. So you had Brent Cruz on the pole, and you had Tyler Reif in second. It was almost as if they took the owner points of the main division, put them on the inside, and then the owner points of the West Division and put them on the outside, which kind of is a fair idea. I think it's probably the fairest way possible that they could have set the field. And it just rewards, obviously who ran the most races last year. First off, but yeah, one car, Alex Malike, did not start the race apparently due to sponsorship issues with ARCA and not allowing the car to be started. So, not ideal there for Alex Clubb. Near 30 mile, they wish it was 30 miles, near 30-hour drive to Phoenix and back, or near 60-hour drive to Phoenix and back, to not even make a lap with that car. The race got started, and, unlike last year, we actually made it through the first corner without a crash. Because if you guys remember, so much for 40-car field last year because we lost 2 cars. If you remember, it was Cody Camille in the 77 and Danica Dart in the 07. We lost both of them on the first lap. So we were already down to 38 cars by the time the first lap had ended with with last year's ARCA race. So, hey, we made it through lap 1. That's pretty good. And we made it through lap 1. I admit, with no practice, I honestly thought we were going to crash on lap 1, with nobody really knowing their cars. Even the high-budget teams might be okay, but a lot of these guys, they really could use some practice laps just to make sure the handling's right, they got the setup right, the ride heights are right. Just, a lot of those teams wish they probably could have gotten a couple of practice laps. But nonetheless, we were able to make it through lap 1, and we actually made it up until the first caution on lap 20, which was a standard competition caution. Obviously to check the track and for any teams to come down and make needed adjustments. And in those 20 laps, we actually had quite a bit of action. So Brad Smith, he pulled off after 7 laps. They caught the back of the field pretty quickly. Again, a lot of these guys not really knowing how to drive Phoenix, having ill-handling cars. They caught the back of the field pretty quickly at this track. But Brad Smith, he ran about 7 laps and he pulled off. Car was way too loose. This was a new car to Brad Smith, actually, if you guys didn't know. Shared it on his Twitter. It is an old Andy Petrie racing car they got from Fast Track Racing, nicknamed Rusty. So, yeah, this was a new car for Brad. But Tim Monroe only completed 2 laps before he was on pit road. He had been on and off pit road pretty much the entire race. And I felt bad for him because this was Tim's own car and he's been busting his ass trying to get it done. So he was on and off pit road like 3 or 4 times throughout the race. Finally got the car right, but sadly multiple laps down. And then same with Ryan Vargas. Same with Ryan Vargas. He was like on pit road on lap 1 or 2, and then he kind of just kept coming in and out of the garage as well. Before he finally pulled off after 13 laps. Brad Perez also went to the garage, and he came back out because we had our first incident. Right as we were going to the competition caution, Isabella Robusto's car appeared to either lose an oil line or lose an engine. I'm not really sure what they clarified it as on the broadcast, but either way, there was a lot of fluid and a lot of smoke. A lot of fluid and a lot of smoke coming out of Isabella's car. So that ended her day in 31st, and man, that is not ideal. And we will go over this in a second when we get to the points. Unfortunately, it looks like her championship hopes might already be over. Again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little bit later. But you had the old cat and mouse game. I call it the old cat and mouse game of start and parking, where Brad Perez had went to the garage, and then after Isabella was out, he came back out on track to pass the 55 and then go back to the garage. I love those classic games of start and parking, man. That's why I love start and parking so much. They play those cat and mouse games of going to the garage and, oh, I'm not actually done. I'm going to go back out. So yeah, by the time we went back to green, which, by the way, the competition caution took 9 laps. So, Jesus, we did not need to go caution that long. But yeah, by the time we got back to green on lap 30, we were already down to 29 cars. So, but still decent amount of cars. Unfortunately, we would literally stay green for a whopping 2 laps because the number 19 of Jake Bowman, and again, I felt bad for him. He, going into turn 1, blew a left front tire. And hit the wall. Thankfully, nobody else hit him. And it did cause a lot of damage, but the 19 crew actually went to work, and he actually got back out on track and finished the race, because as you know, even though they're not running for the Drivers' Championship, they are running for the Owners' Championship, and in the ARCA Series, the Owners' Championship is really where the money comes from. And anybody in the series will tell you that. The Drivers' Championship really doesn't bring any money. It's the Owners' Championship dollars are where the money is really coming from. Did the 97... Oh, sorry, was the 97 involved in that crash? I don't know. I'll admit, Fox's broadcast was not the best. Kitzmiller might have been involved in that crash, actually. So if I did miss that, I'm sorry, but if I did miss that, I apologize, because Fox, although Jamie Little was not on the broadcast, Eric Brennan did a great job. Eric Brennan and Phil Parsons did amazing on commentary, but Fox's production was still crapped. It wasn't involved with the 97 is what people are saying. But Jason Kitzmiller did have his own problems. We might as well talk about him too. He hit the wall a couple of times as well, and I think he hit it once. And then he hit it again, and then it killed the right side of the car. Either way, the 97 did not have a good showing either. Actually, somehow also got into an accident with the 05. The 05 also hit the wall, David Smith. That was not shown on TV either. Was not shown on TV. So yeah, David Smith went out with crash damage that we really never even saw. The 97, we did see damage, but I don't know if we actually saw it hit the wall. The 03 of Alex Clubb had a mechanical problem. They had something go through the oil pan. So yeah, we were literally just dropping cars like crazy here, man. And we're not even, 35, 40 laps into the race. But that happens in these ARCA races. You can't help it. But yeah, you're right. It was Jason Kitzmiller. He hit the wall, but then came back out, and then the engine blew up. That's right. Yep, that's right. So, but yeah, so we went back to green after the 19 incident. By this point, going back up to the lead, Brent Cruz, the 18, he's leading the race, going back to the leaders now. He had started to lead the race, actually got clipped by the 31 of Tim Viennes. Tim Viennes during the race, which was kind of funny. Not the only time we'll be talking about Tim Viennes here. We'll get to that a little bit, but he actually got clipped while leading the race. But the one thing that you have not seen very often was the 18 car get passed. It was during this run where the 18 was actually caught and passed by the 28. Now, we have seen where the 28 has been able to match the 18's number at many of these tracks. Unfortunately, nobody else has, but it is nice not just having the 18 dominate every single race. The 28 has actually been able to really contend with them, which I think also shows the promise of the Pinnacle Racing Group team, and they've only been around for a couple years. And I think Shane Huffman has really been the deciding factor at that operation. I know he's not the crew chief anymore, but I know he still works for the team, and that guy really knows his stuff. And you also got to give credit to Brendan Queen. I mean, he had a lot of pressure probably put on him, taking over the ride from Connor Zilic, who did freaking phenomenal in that ride. Should have won more races than he did. But yeah, a lot of pressure on Brendan Queen, but he's definitely shown in these two races that he's up to the pressure and he's doing well for sure. But one of the very few times you will see the 18 actually passed for the lead, and it was clean, might I add too. The 28 didn't just go right up there and move him out of the way. It actually was clean. It was a clean pass. So by this point, the 19 and the 12, they were in and out of the pits. They had finally come back out on track. We were down to around 26 cars by this point. So now that the field had kind of subsided a little bit, shrunken down a little bit, everyone had gotten more spread out. We were finally able to log some laps. Now, we did have a competition caution break at lap 75, which is normal for the series. So from the number 19 Bowman crash to the scheduled break, we ran that entire 34-lap green flag run clean. There were no cautions. And through that, the 28 caught the 18, passed him, and he pulled a bit of a gap. But the one thing we also saw was the 23 of Tyler Reif. Now, you guys might also know Tyler Reif did win this race a couple years ago. In my opinion, one of the best underdog moments in ARCA in the last couple years was his win in this race a couple years ago for the Loudon Jackson team, driving the 41 car, coming back from 2 laps down nonetheless. He was actually able to get past the 18 of Brent Cruz and was actually running down the leader at the time of the halfway break caution. So, you know, if this was like a regular West Series race where we don't normally have cautions and they actually just see it through to the very end of the race, who knows? Maybe the 23 actually would have taken the lead, but nonetheless, we had the caution. And so, you know, everybody got to come down. I think 4 tires. I'm not sure if they were allowed 2 or 4, but 2 or 4 tires. And we get back to green, and the 23 of Tyler Reif actually gets the green flag. Gets the green flag. The lead on the green flag on the restart. So we actually had our 3rd different leader in the race. Now, granted, he only held it for a couple laps. He only held the lead for a couple laps. But still, nonetheless, it does show that this Sigma Performance number 23 team, which is owned by Joe Ferre, you know, they're here to race, man. You know, they're not there to run 6th or 7th, you know, maybe finish a lap down. They're there to win. And Tyler, of course, is going after the E-Series championship, but we have seen the 23 operation. We have seen the 23 operation run multiple main series races, and we'll be running quite a few races on the main series schedule, as long as it's E-Series championship run 2. So, the 18, of course, takes back the lead from Tyler Reif. We only get 7 laps in before contact with the teammates. Patrick Starpoli and Trayton Lapsevich make contact in turn 2. Now, in the previous lap, the 15 had actually made contact with the 6, coming off of turn 4. And I will grant this, for as much crap as I give him, side note real quick, for as much crap as we give Thad Moffitt, and believe me, some of it's warranted. Some of the crap we give Thad Moffitt warranted. Now, he'll get some flack here in a second, but Thad Moffitt really had one of the better races of his career. You got to give him credit where it is, but we will go over one of his not-so-good moments here in a second. But going into turn 3, not sure if he just got loose, but Trayton hits the 25 and spins out Patrick Starpoli. So, yeah, not going very well for Venturini. Not good. This was not the best race in general for Venturini, although the 15 and the 20, the 25 did end up with good finishes. Venturini really was not in contention for the win at all. Neither of the 4 cars really showed. I mean, the 55 didn't have a chance, but the other 3 really didn't show any signs of being race-winning cars. Obviously, they were going to finish well, but not necessarily for the win. But we got another restart going again. This time, we had basically a run to the checkered flag, and kind of the same thing we saw. Brent Cruz got the lead again. Brent Cruz was able to lead, but on the restart, Brendan Queen was able to get the jump and actually clear the 18, which, again, you don't normally see the 18 getting beaten on restarts. But, you know, he raced him clean, and he was able to get the lead, and he pulled away. Again, not by a huge margin, about maybe 1 to 2 seconds, but I don't know what it is about the 18 and the 28, man, on these short runs, or on these long runs, but goddamn do they just have great equipment. Because coming to the last lap, we'll talk about this real quick, but coming to the last lap, they literally had a 10-second gap over 3rd place. That is just so impressive to me that 2 cars can be that hooked up more than 3rd place. Like, I get it, you know, ARCA, you know, everyone's like, oh, they're all cheated up. You know what, man, maybe they are. They probably are, actually. But still, to be that far ahead of 3rd place, you know, in some ways, you got to respect it. It can be a little boring, sure, but you got to respect it. To be that far ahead of engineering for a lot of these teams. do want to talk about the side notes real quick. Outside of the leaders, LeVar Scott and Lawless Allen, they were just kind of the back half of the top 5, upper top 10 all day, running between around 4th to about 7th all day. Really want to give a shout out to the Jans towing operation once again. The number 1 and the 71, they were arguably the most consistent, West Series team. I know the 23 is West and they run main series division races, but primarily full-time West Series competition, the Jans towing cars were by far the best of them tonight. Kyle Keller and Robbie Keanley consistently ran in the top 10, and we're talking ahead of some pretty decent cars. They ran ahead of the 77 of Corey Day for a lot of the race. They ran ahead of both of the Souza entries. Trevor Huddleston, Andy Jankowiak, who, well, he didn't have any power steering. I don't think Andy J had any power steering the entire race. So he had a long day. But yeah, they were running ahead of some pretty well-funded cars. So, again, give a shout-out to the Jans towing team. They're here to race, too. They're not there just to run around in last place. They're here to win. They're here to race. And like I said, poor Andy Jankowiak, they talked about him on the broadcast. I was kind of wondering myself why he was not necessarily running very well. And they finally admitted on the broadcast he didn't have any power steering, which at a track like Phoenix sounds like a nightmare. An absolute nightmare to drive around with no power steering. And other full-time main series competitors like Eric Johnson Jr. and Trevor Huddleston, Tanner Reif, they were just kind of hovering outside the top 10, which, kind of happens in these combo races. You don't usually see the West Series teams challenge the main series operations. You don't usually see that in this race. They kind of just hover around the lower top 10 to around the top, 15 area. And, they shine some light on the other cars in the field, like Brayton Laster, who's out there driving for Peterson in the Toyota Dodge car. Tim Monroe, he got a little bit of screen time. Michael Maples got a little bit of screen time. Just kind of highlighting some of the other cars in the field, which is always appreciative by the series. It's always nice when they show the other cars on the broadcast, absolutely. But, meanwhile, while all this is going on, the 28's just cruising away, no challenge. The 28, he used up his stuff. He was not going to catch him. He had tried to make a couple of runs, even closed the gap down to about 0.7 of a second, but he just was not going to close it. Unless he just absolutely dive bombed it into the corner, he probably still wasn't going to get him. So, but anyway, the laps are clicking off. By this point, we had lost one more car. The number 9 of Tony Cosentino had actually pulled off due to a mechanical problem as well. So at this point, we were down to 25 cars on the track. So again, everybody was pretty spaced out by this point. If you guys are wondering why my head's looking, I'm looking at my notes. So if you see my head pointing like this, I'm looking at my notes screen. And just in case you guys are curious. And yeah, so 28's going to cruise to victory. We take the white flag. He's on the backstretch, half a lap from the win, and we get a caution. And in the ARCA series, when there's a caution on the last lap, we rack him up again for a one-lap restart. Yep, we don't end races under yellow in this series, which can be a great idea and a terrible idea. Case in point, Talladega 2018 and Daytona 2018. For any of the OGs who might remember those races. Boy, that was hard to watch. Oh, it's so funny. Now, granted, you're like, well, why, what would cause a caution, when the 28 is only, half a lap from the line? Well, unfortunately for Tim Vines, or Tim Vines, whatever the correct pronunciation is, he got really high coming off of turn 2, or turn 4, the old turn 2, now turn 4. Off of turn 4, I'm not really sure what happened to him. But he just kind of spun right in front of the racetrack. I mean, unfortunately, ARCA literally had no choice. They had to throw the caution. I mean, the car was literally spinning on the track. It was not one of those yellows that they could have ignored. and just let the race play out. Now, they did unfortunately have to throw the yellow, but yeah, so I mean, I get if he was probably old tires, but you know, bro, you're 9 laps down with 1 lap to go. Just ease it around. What happened? I don't know. And I love Rise Motorsports. You know, Tim Goulet's a good friend of mine in the garage. But I don't know what happened there. Like, bro, you're 9 laps down. It's the last lap. Like, why are you even running at full pace? Just idle around until you get to the flag. And, yeah. And I hate that for Rise Motorsports because, you know, they already get a lot of crap on Twitter. They really do. And I don't even blame Tim Goulet for this one. I don't. It was just an unfortunate incident. You know, it's just an unfortunate incident. So, well, that racked him up, and unfortunately, that wasn't only the first time, but we get going green. The 18, the 28 get a great restart. The 28 does. And as we're going down the front stretch, Thad Moffitt turns the 23 into the wall and destroying the front end of Tyler Reif. So, unfortunately for Tyler Reif, a great top 5 finish. He really was going to finish top 5. Was taken away from him, and a lot of damage to the 23 car. Not really sure what happened there. They did look on the replay. I'm actually watching the replay right now. And I don't think it was intentional, but Thad just turns right into the 23. I don't think it was intentional. I don't. But Thad really just turned right into the 23 car, and the pit wall extends just far enough to where the 23 clipped it, and so his day was over. We get back going green again for one last try. Thankfully, we got it on the second try. Both the 18 and the 28 got great restarts. You know, good job by Brent not to get jumped on by the 28. And actually, we were 3 wide for the lead going into turn 1. Trayton Lapcevich had actually gotten into the inside, but he couldn't hold it. He was too far low. The 18 looked to be beat. The 28 had him clear going down the backstretch. Now, they were coming into turn 3, and the 18 is getting right behind him. And I'm like, oh boy, is he just going to ship the 28 into next week? Is he just going to ship the 28 into next week and steal the win? Well, not exactly. I'm not sure if there was contact. Brendan Queen didn't necessarily go right to the bottom. He did leave the bottom lane open for Brent Cruz, and I think Brent kind of saw the opportunity there. He didn't absolutely just ram him out of the way, but you could probably tell that Brent saw the opportunity and got on the throttle a little bit harder than you normally would, and he just kind of bumped him out of the way, side bumped him out of the way, and Brent Cruz takes the win at Phoenix, and Brendan Queen still recovers to finish second. And, you know, I would classify it as Rubbins racing. I wouldn't call that dirty. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to win races clean, but you can't really call that a dirty move. I mean, it's just, that's how racing is nowadays. Rubbins racing, people are going to, hit each other. It's these young guys, they're going to be aggressive. This is a big opportunity for Brent Cruz and the JGR equipment, so obviously he wants to do well. So like I said, I don't blame him for what he did, but, I can also understand Brendan Queen's frustration with the move. He had the race won. This win was definitely taken from him. He definitely had the win taken away from him, but, Rubbins racing sometimes, and I don't know. I wouldn't call it necessarily dirty, just a very aggressive move that, to your interpretation could go either way. But the 18 wins, Brent Cruz wins. Obviously, second was Brendan Queen. Like I said, great recoveries for Trayton Lapcevich. He held on to third. Lawless Allen, fourth. A great recovery finish from Daytona, fourth. LeVar Scott, fifth. Again, didn't really have a winning car, but he had a very solid car at the end of the day, fifth place. Cole Raz, 6th. Again, still no clearance if he's going full-time or not, but a good finish. Thad Moffitt, 7th. Probably one of his better races he ran in his career. Patrick Starpoli, 8th. Robbie Keanly, 9th. And top 10, number 77, Corey Day. Eric Johnson Jr. was 11th. Trevor Huddleston was 12th. Tanner Reif was 13th. Andy Jankowiak was 14th. Poor Kyle Keller, man. He ran out of fuel. And so that sucked. He lost 3 laps, so he didn't get the finish he deserved. Cody Dennison in 16th. Blake Lothian in 17th. Adrian Fair in 18th. Tyler Reif ended up 19th. Tim Viennes for Rye still got 20th, so I guess not a terrible finish either. Michael Maples, 21st. He had a mechanical problem at the start of the race, so he was really slow. They finally got it fixed. Brayton Laster, 22nd. Tim Monroe, 23rd. Jake Bowman, 24th. And Jonathan Rayom, 25th. Those were the cars that were finishing at the end of the race. And then the remaining DNFs were Tony Cosentino in 26th. Jason Kitzmiller in 27th. Alex Clubb in 28th. David Smith in 29th, Brad Perez in 30th, Isabella Robusto in 31st, Ryan Vargas in 32nd, Brad Smith in 33rd, and Alex Malike in 34th. So that is your finishing order rundown. Point standings, we'll talk about the West Series division first. Obviously, with this being a combo event, the points definitely got a little bit skewed up. But Trevor Huddleston still leads Robbie Keanly by 5 points. Tanner Reif is in 3rd, -7. Eric Johnson Jr. is 4th, -8. Kyle Keller is 5th, -9. Cody Dennison, he did start Kern County, so technically he's 6th in points, but he's not full-time. So he doesn't really count. Adrian Fair is really probably going to be in 6th at the next one. Blake Lothian, he's also full-time, 8th, and David Smith is 9th. So it looks like 9 drivers, or 8 drivers, will be full-time in the West Division. As for the main division point standings, obviously Daytona is still being felt. Probably not going to see a real outlook for the championship until probably about 4 or 5, maybe 6 races in. Because that's kind of how these ARCA races work, with bigger fields and then smaller fields. Brendan Queen still leads the point standings by 11 points over LeVar Scott. Cole Raz is in 3rd. Again, still no clarification if he's full-time. Fingers crossed that he is, but no clarification if the 76 is full-time yet. He's -15. Lawless Allen, again, the disappointing finish he had at Daytona rendered him pretty far back in the field. So he's going to have to still work on clawing back some points. He's still 24 points out of the championship, which for being that far back is going to be hard to recover from. Andy Jankowiak, we know he's not full-time, but he's currently 5th, -25. Jason Kitzmiller, this was not what he needed. A 6th-place finish. He is now -33. And he's full-time too, so that's going to be really hard for him to recover from. Corey Day, we know he's not full-time. He's just running a part-time schedule. Tim Viennes is running a part-time schedule as well. Brent Cruz is part-time. William Sawalch is part-time. The next full-time driver on the list, I think Thad Moffitt's full-time. He's 11th, -47. Alex Clubb is 12th, -47. Brayton Laster is 13th, -49. Cody Dennison, again, I don't know if he's full-time or not, but we'll say him anyway. He's 16th, -53. And this is the sad one right here. Isabella Robusto in 19th place in points, -55. I hate to say it. I really do. But unless she wins Talladega and the 28 crashes out, I would say that Isabella's championship hopes are pretty much gone already. 55 points is a long way behind in the ARCA series, especially when you consider that after Talladega, we're probably not going to see 30-plus cars again for the rest of the year. Maybe for Charlotte. But with how strong that 28 is every week, it is going to be extremely, extremely difficult for Isabella to climb back in the championship hunt. I hate to say it, but I really do think Isabella's title hopes are done. I hope not. I hope she can go on a tear and win some races and come back and maybe win the championship, but two terrible finishes to start the year are not ideal, especially with these big fields, because, we will see some, maybe less than 20 car or 22, 23 car ARCA races a little bit later in the year. So, then Michael Maples is behind her in 20th place. I believe he is the final full-time driver in points. Brad Smith obviously missed Daytona, so, but we'll count him anyway. Brad Smith is all the way down in 54th place, but, by the time we get 5 or 6 races on, he'll be back up into the top 20 like usual. So, but right now, man, Brendan Butterbean Queen, they just got to continue their momentum. Continue their momentum for the championship right now. 11-point lead going into Talladega. That is absolutely, what you want. The question is, they just got to survive Talladega because, the races after that, starting at Kansas, like I said, that's when the car counts will more than likely start to die off a little bit, probably back under 30 cars. And that's when the championship battle can get kind of close, especially going to the various short tracks, road courses, and dirt tracks that the series goes to as well. So for Talladega, man, you're going to have a lot of aggressive people at Talladega. For Isabella really needs to perform at Talladega. People like Isabella, Jason, they really, really need to have some good runs at Talladega if they want to come back for this championship. And same for Lawless. He's still 24 points back, too. So, as we waiting for the next main series ARCA event in a month at Talladega, that race is going to have some aggressive drivers. So right out of the gate right there, I think it'll be better than last year's race. As, we all know last year's Talladega race was a disappointment. I don't think this year's will be. But yeah, the next, so that is Phoenix. The next ARCA Racing Series event, period, will actually be the East Series Opener. The East Series Opener at Five Flags Speedway on March 22nd. We will be covering that event. I'm not sure if we're going to cover all the East Series standalones. We might. We might. I'm not 100% sure about that just yet. But, yeah, that'll be the East Series Opener. For the West Series division, the next race is April 5th at Tucson. And then, like I said, the next main series division race is Talladega on April 26th. So, we do have a week off. No ARCA Racing Series event this weekend as the NASCAR divisions are at Las Vegas. And ARCA is not doing a standalone event. So, like I said, just a review show today. But Phoenix was fun. Definitely better than last year's race for sure. A lot cleaner. Maybe not the finish, but the race itself was. And, like usual, the 18, the 28, they're just so hard to beat. It's hard to beat those kinds of operations. And I think the big takeaway is just the ingenuity, man, in that series. The camber setups are just... The camber setups, man, are ridiculous, and I love that. I love the fact that the teams are allowed to be that aggressive with their negative camber and positive camber setups for tracks like Phoenix or in short tracks in general to get optimal, turning conditions. I can really respect that kind of ingenuity that these teams do for us. But, yeah, was it a better race than last year's Phoenix race? You could go 50-50 with it. My opinion, it was a little bit better. Just for the strict fact that it didn't get rained out. Last year's got rained out. This year's didn't. But I think it's going to be a good season. It's still too early to tell who are the championship favorites because so many of them are behind. As for the West Series, I think you could probably make some comparisons on who's going to be the hard to beat for the West Series championship. I would probably say Trevor Huddleston, Robbie Keanley, Tanner Reif, and Kyle Keller. Those 5 drivers, that's probably where your champion's going to come out of. And yeah, obviously the West Series, they are struggling a little bit this year. It looks like for car counts. I hope that's not going to be a consistent issue. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see once the Tucson entry list comes out. And as for my ARCA plans, I was planning to go to Rockingham. Looks like those plans have fallen through, sadly, which I'm a little disappointed about. And same with Talladega. I had planned to go to Talladega, but I'm not sure if we're going there now as well. Like I said, I want to, but stuck with the vintage car. It's just money's a little bit tight right now in terms of traveling funding. Just don't really have a lot of money to do the travel I used to, but so probably end up being my first race weekend will be Kansas in May, like usual. So, well, yeah, we're off to the races, man, in the ARCA Racing Series this year, and just glad you guys are all joining me for the ride. Hope you guys like the layout. We might be doing more of these from my room instead of doing it from Dad's office. So if you like the room layout, if you like the room background more than the office background, let me know in the comments section, and we might be doing more of these from my room instead of my dad's office. So anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you again for joining in for the ARC Racing Podcast, and we'll see you all at the next show. And I'll give you all the goodbye salute. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on those bell for all notifications, and you guys have a great night. So long, y'all. Goodbye.